Angus King. Senator, you were on the Senate floor earlier today, part of this huddle with Senator Corker. Can you just explain what was going on and what the major sticking points are?
Sure. Well, first let me say your reporter was absolutely right. The real question to be asked tonight is what tax bill? Believe it or not, Anderson, nobody's seen it. We're going to be voting on one of the most important votes we'll ever take in this body that'll affect this country for the next 30 years. Sometime tomorrow, nobody's seen the bill. To call this a circus would be an insult to circuses. But let me talk about what was going on. I submitted a very simple amendment that simply said, send the bill back to the Finance Committee and have them report back a deficit-neutral bill, a bill that doesn't blow a hole in the deficit. And there were a group of Republicans that were inclined to support my amendment. It threw everything into disarray. A vote that was supposed to take 15 minutes ended up taking over an hour. Ultimately, those Republicans ended up voting against my amendment, but the issue is not settled by any means. And as I say, the amendment was very straightforward. Send the bill back to committee, send us back one that doesn't blow a hole in the deficit. And now here we are faced with, we don't know what, and we're going to be taking this big vote tomorrow. But there are so many moving parts, and it would be fairly easy for them to fix this, but so far they just aren't doing so.
So I mean, are there other
discussions all night?
Yeah, I mean, are there other options on the table? Because I understand from Phil Mattingly's reporting that one option is the corporate tax rate going up after 6 years.
Well, that's one option, and then to complicate matters, Marco Rubio and Mike Lee have an amendment to provide a more generous tax credit for children, which I think is very appropriate. They would bump the corporate rate up from 20 to 22% in order to pay for that. So there's a lot of things in play here, but the really frustrating thing, Anderson, is this is a bill that's never had a hearing. It's never had a hearing. When we did tax reform in 1986, there were 33 hearings over 10 months, and the bill passed the Senate 90 to 10. In this case, they've tried to jam it through, no hearing, 1 week of committee consideration, no expert opinion from outside, no ordinary citizens, and here we are, and as of, whatever it is, 8:30 tonight, we still don't know what the bill is. The people that are running this show don't know what the bill is. So I just think it's ridiculous. And what we ought to do is take a deep breath, stop, and try to develop a bipartisan bill, which could still be done. That everybody agrees. I don't know about everybody, but most people agree we've got to cut corporate tax rate to be more competitive. And there's some other things we can do to stimulate the economy. But the report that came out this afternoon from the Joint Tax Committee just blew away this argument that somehow this is going to pay for itself. And so, they're left trying to figure out how to make it whole, and I don't think they're going to be able to do it.
I mean, how can people in good conscience vote for a bill that nobody has actually seen or read? I mean, there could be all sorts of favors to people and organizations and lobbyists inside there.
Anderson, the Bangor City Council wouldn't amend the leash law with a process like this. I mean, it's embarrassing. And it's not the way the Senate's supposed to work. I worked here as a staff member many years ago. It was never anything like this. And bringing a bill up and rewriting it, I mean, bills always get changed and they're always complicated. But the idea of having us vote on, as I say, I think one of the most important bills that we'll ever vote on. It's going to affect every business, every American, our entire economy, probably for the next 20 or 30 years. And we have no idea how it all fits together, whether it does, what the unexpected consequences are. I mean, it's just a hell of a way to run a railroad.
What do you make of the president's comment saying that this bill, quote, cost him a fortune? Will it, in your opinion?
Well, of course, it's impossible to assess that because we've never seen his tax returns. But the one tax return we did see from 2005, we saw a summary. I think I remember my figures right. He paid $38 million in tax. $31 million of that was because of something called the alternative minimum tax, which high-income taxpayers, it basically says you can't deduct down to nothing, and it clicks in for high income. That's repealed in this bill. The estate tax is repealed in the House bill and modified in this bill. Those two provisions, I don't see how they could help but help the president. Now, it's one thing for him to assert that it helps, that it'll hurt him, but all the evidence is to the contrary, and he could solve this issue very easily by simply releasing his tax returns, which every president, every presidential candidate for the last 40 or 50 years has done. But to me, for him to say it's going to hurt me, that doesn't square with what we saw from his 05 return.
Yeah, a strange day, Senator. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Coming up next, we